Hello everyone. Welcome to the lesson Journey to the End of the Earth by Tishani Doshi. This is the second part of a three-parter explanation series by Deepshika ma'am. Moving on. Human impact on Antarctica. Ma'am would now explain what is it.
Human civilizations have been around for a paltry 12,000 years, barely a few seconds on the geological clock. In that short amount of time, we have managed to create quite a ruckus, reaching a dominance over nature with our villages, towns, cities, megacities. We have impacted Antarctica immensely.
The surprising fact here is that Antarctica has basically no human population other than who go to explore Antarctica, and yet it bears the brunt of rampant globalization.
Can you list me some of the causes of the Antarctica damages?
Sure, ma'am. The basic cause for all environmental damage will, of course, always be booming human population, which resulted in rapid industrialization and vehicular increase to serve the ends of men and women, of course, which led to the creation of a carbon blanket, in turn leading to greenhouse effect and global warming. This just shows the dominance of humans over nature. The examples in current context would be the Australian bushfire and the burning of Amazon forest. The causes listed for these two have been nothing but human arson. I would also like to tell you, ma'am, that Earth in itself is capable of repairing itself. The current global lockdown for COVID 19 suggests the same. Earth can repair itself, and it has manifested in the following ways. The Yamuna River has cleaned itself. The Dhaulagarh range is visible from Punjab. The air quality index of Delhi has increased, and the air is purer than ever. Dolphins have returned to the marine coastal environment of Mumbai. This just shows that a lockdown of just 1 month has impacted the earth in such a profound way that it has got back to its natural terms. Moving on, impact of global warming on Antarctica's ecosystem.
Antarctica is a perfect place to study how little changes in the environment can have big repercussions. Take the microscopic phytoplanktons, those grasses of the sea that nourish and sustain the entire southern ocean's food chain. These single celled plants use the sun's energy to assimilate carbon and synthesize organic compounds in that wondrous and most important of processes called photosynthesis. Scientists warn that a further depletion in the ozone layer will affect the activities of the phytoplankton, which in turn will affect the lives of all the marine animals and birds of the region.
Students, as you can see in the picture given on the right hand sides of your screens, phytoplanktons are the only source of sustenance and nourishment for the krill, and krill forms a very integral part of the Antarctic food web and in turn the Antarctic ecosystem. The krill, as you can see, is related to the birds, seals, the big fish, the whales, the small fish, and literally everything. So the disappearance of krill would have a devastating impact on the Antarctic ecosystem. To explain the devastating effects of human impact, we'll now show you a documentary. Kindly hold on.
We're here for a 3-week expedition to deploy some time-lapse cameras on the Antarctic Peninsula and on South Georgia. We've already told a powerful story of what's going on way up north. I've always wanted to tell the story of what's going on down here. Adding a story from this part of the world makes the archive that much more powerful. The peninsula is one of the fastest warming places in the world. The year-round temperatures at Palmer Station are up 5 degrees on average. 5 degrees is an enormous increase in warming. That's a big story, and the glaciers give us a chance to bring that story to life. South Georgia is a stunning place. I was completely unprepared for how spectacular it would be.
Hey, boys. Hey, boys.
In the early 1800s, this place was a hub for sealing and whaling. In 1914, Sir Ernest Shackleton's expedition stopped here on its way to Antarctica. His photographer, Frank Hurley, shot some pictures that document where the glaciers were on the beach. 1972, Phil Stone comes down and he does a study of ice positions as well.
Frank Hurley's photographs from the Shackleton trip are enormously valuable. The whalers took photographs, but they took photographs of the whaling stations and whaling activity. Hurley's pictures are probably the earliest we have of the general environment of South Georgia. The changes of South Georgia in the last century or so are really quite marked.
As far as the Extreme Ice Survey is concerned, we thought our real work was in Antarctica. And when we got here, I realized that South Georgia was an incredible opportunity for both art and science. South Georgia and the Antarctic Peninsula, down here in the air currents blowing around the southern part of the world, it's giving you a test for what's going on in these latitudes, and you can see the air and the climate changing through these glaciers.
Let's see this one.
That's the one that was taken over there.
Yeah.
All the deflation that may have occurred could just throw off what we're actually looking at, but I think overall we're a little bit higher than what this photo is taken as. But good God, has that changed?
In 1972, Bertrab Glacier was this great big tongue of ice licking down out of the highlands, laying all the way across this area called Gold Harbor. We just got here and there's no ice on the beach anywhere. So big changes have happened here. Our pictures, repeating what others have already done, makes an amazing long-term record of how this area has changed.
We can follow the retreat of glaciers from satellites these days. They produce very precise numbers, but in many cases there's simply no substitute for a striking visual image. I think it carries power that raw numbers don't.
I no longer know how long the Extreme Ice Survey is going to go on. I thought it would only be a 3-year project. Now we're on year 8, and we're basically committed for 5 more years down here in the southern hemisphere. There's some connection between our minds, the camera's eyes, and what's going on in the landscape. There's some voice that comes through that process. It comes from the ice, through the camera, through our minds, and back out in our voices to the society around us. We're performing a service on behalf of the landscape. After a certain point, I am not even sure that it's my choice to make. It's just what is our humble task to do.
I hope students you liked the documentary. We'll continue with the rest of the lesson in the third and the final part. That is an important part as we discuss the interpretations of our of the lesson.